Today I'm reacting to your wrestling hot takes. Hot takes is a weekly video series where I give you all a platform to be able to voice your thoughts, whether they're good or bad, about the current world of professional wrestling. I am doing this one day early because I normally release these on Saturdays, but King and Queen of the Ring is this Saturday and I didn't want the two to conflict with each other. But if you do want to be part of the King and Queen of the Ring hot takes video on Sunday, make sure that you're following me on X. I'm gonna ask for your hot takes about the show immediately once it's over. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, ring the bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I know that you're gonna fall in love with his YouTube channel because we always upload daily wrestling content. All right, let's read some stupid shit. The UFC and WWE merger was a terrible decision because the quality of the shows has gone down. The stage, the production, the graphics, etc. I gotta be honest with you, dude. I'm actually on the complete opposite end of this opinion. I think that the production has gotten infinitely better ever since the WWE and UFC merger. You mentioned the stage, I'll give you that, but I think it's a necessity because they need to go to more simplistic stages to open up more seating room because the WWE is the hottest ticket in town and they need to make more seats available. But when it comes to the production and the graphics, I gotta admit, man, I just think that you're just flat out wrong here because when I look at the graphics that they do before they go to commercial break, they're very personalized to the individual wrestler that they're promoting and they look really clean and really crisp. And then there's the production, especially the camera work has gotten so much better. And I think the best example is the great backstage segments, the great Easter eggs that they hide in the back, and of course the backstage to in-ring entrances that they've been doing. I feel like this is prime WWE when it comes to production. Maybe it's a preference thing, but I just think that you're wrong on this one. I think the production has gotten way better. LA Knight lost his momentum because of The Rock returning. Even if he wins the US title, I feel like he has hit a ceiling and won't ever be main event worthy again since The Rock will again come back for Cody and eventually Roman, which will put LA Knight in the backseat for too long. I get what you're saying. However, I'm actually going to rebuttal and say that this happened before The Rock even came back. It happened when Randy Orton and CM Punk came back at Survivor Series because that was immediately after LA Knight got his opportunity at Roman Reigns at Crown Jewel for the Undisputed Championship. And immediately within a month, he was in the back burner because bigger names had come back to the WWE. And it seems to be a regular cycle for LA Knight. Some big name comes back, that big name takes priority, and LA Knight takes a back seat. So I think you are onto something here. Maybe this is a ceiling that LA Knight has hit because it seems like the WWE just prefers to put their egg in the baskets of more established names rather than LA Knight. That's at least what I'm perceiving. And I wouldn't be surprised if this continues to happen over and over and over again. However, we have to also admit that LA Knight is in a way better spot this time around this year than he was at the same time last year. He regularly appears on television shows, premium live events, and at the very least we can celebrate that. But I just don't think that the WWE is ever going to consider LA Knight on the same level and echelon as people like Randy Orton. At least that's the evidence that they're giving me. Liv just needs to hurry up and become champ already. It's clear that they want her as champion and the story between her and Becky just isn't hitting right. I do think that the end goal here is to put the championship on Liv Morgan, and I do think it's the right choice because Liv Morgan has the better potential future feuds than Becky Lynch has. The feud between Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley alone could be a WrestleMania worthy match. But I also think that they need to pick the right time and the right place to make sure that when Liv Morgan wins, that it hits and it hits real hard. And I don't think that King and Queen of the Ring is that place necessarily. I actually think it's better to happen at Clash at the Castle that happens in Scotland, which is just a stone's throw away from Ireland. So you're gonna have a lot of Irish folks that are there to support and root for Becky Lynch. So to have the heel win in front of a pro Becky Lynch crowd at Clash at the Castle, I think is a great way to put some big major heel heat on Liv Morgan and start off her heel championship run on the best foot possible. Tiffany Stratton does not need the Money in the Bank briefcase because she can win plenty without it. Give it to somebody like Zoe Stark. I understand the sentiment. However, I'm going to disagree because I do think that Tiffany Stratton can help elevate the Money in the Bank briefcase, just like how the briefcase can also help elevate Tiffany Stratton. Meanwhile, somebody like Zoe Stark, it's just a one-way transaction. I think the Money in the Bank briefcase can only help elevate Zoe Stark. I don't think that Zoe Stark necessarily helps elevate the Money in the Bank briefcase. And when it comes to character elements, Tiffany Stratton just is served better to be a Miss Money in the Bank rather than Zoe Stark. In fact, I think Tiffany Stratton might be the best served character to be a Miss Money in the Bank in the WWE right now, aside from somebody like Chelsea Green, perhaps. Wyatt 6 making their debut in a loud and rowdy Scotland at Clash at the Castle makes more sense than Saudi, because we don't know how the crowd will react to the Wyatt 6 appearing this Saturday. I get what you're saying, however, I'm gonna rebuttal by saying that they already missed the best crowd to do this in front of. I actually think they should have done it at Backlash in front of the French crowd. And maybe the WWE wasn't expecting that French crowd to be so legendarily good, because I do think it was just such a missed opportunity. And I get you wanting this to happen at Clash of the Castle so that we can get a more guaranteed, rowdy, awesome fan base. However, I think you'd be taking too darn long to pull the trigger. I think we're just at the point where the default best place to do it has to be King and Queen of the Ring, because I don't know how much longer you can continue to stretch out the QR codes and the live streams and keeping people interested in the Wyatt 6 and Bo Dallas. Like, people are inevitably going to grow impatient. In fact, I'm already seeing a lot of that impatience today. So I just think the WWE missed the boat on being able to do it in the best possible crowd while still doing it in a timely manner, because I do think the Clash of the Castle crowd would be better served for this, but it's too far away. Michael Jackson would have been as good as Logan Paul. What? The fact that people are trying to hype up this man as a future world champion is absolutely insane. Cena was right about him. A bargain basement Taz running a bargain basement bloodline. Damn, that's harsh, brother. Here's the thing, man. The WWE has basically done this to themselves by making Solo Sikoa the loss machine when he went on this like 70 match losing streak. It's hard to take him seriously when you know that that was the case just not that long ago, that he was the professional loser. So now a lot of the smarter fans have to suspend their disbelief and believe that this is an unbeatable monster. Meanwhile, he just proved for like 4 months straight that he was the most beatable guy in the WWE. I think it's gonna take a little while to fully rehab Solo Sikoa's like aura across the entire fan base of the WWE. I do think that he's already been rehabilitated in front of the more casual crowd, which frankly is the crowd that matters. But for me and probably you watching this video, we need more time and more evidence to truly get behind and buy in on a monster heel Solo Sikoa. WWE just damaged him too much right now. There shouldn't be any women's matches in Saudi. Between the changes to their gear and the crowd who doesn't care, all the women deserve better. Yeah, I actually used to be a believer in this as well, that they just shouldn't have women's matches in Saudi Arabia because they weren't getting treated the way that they should. They weren't getting the crowd reactions that they should. However, and maybe I'm in no place to comment about this, I think the best way to move forward, the best way to actually bring about positive change is to force women to be on this show to make sure that eventually the Saudi crowd falls in love with the women performers. I absolutely believe that women's wrestling is at its peak right now. And as a viewer, I would hate to not be able to experience awesome women's wrestling on TV simply because of the location of the world that they're in. They may not get the best crowd reactions, but me, you, and the millions of people watching at home are rooting our asses off for these women. And they should get the opportunity and the stage to be able to do so, and maybe in the process, they can make the Saudi crowd actually care. It was actually somebody in the comments that pointed this out to me, because like I said, I used to have a very similar opinion to yours. I think that fully removing the women from the Saudi shows is almost like admitting that they aren't worthy to be on the Saudi shows, which is just not the case. So to the Saudi crowd, please show some more love to women's wrestling, please. WWE should turn Drew babyface in Glasgow and Punk heel for their eventual feud. Hell no, man. Dude, this heel Drew McIntyre has been a renaissance, and this babyface CM Punk has been the most fun CM Punk that I've seen in like 2 decades. So I like the route that they're going. I love this angry bitter, just cynical Drew McIntyre. I don't want them to change that. I get that Drew is going to be universally beloved at Clash at the Castle, but just because one crowd is going to love and be fully behind Drew McIntyre, you shouldn't make a narrative and booking decision that will impact everything that comes afterwards simply because of one crowd's reaction. A crowd reaction that is expected because that's where he's freaking from. WWE needs to add a third hour to SmackDown. They've gotten really good with the pace of everything on Raw, and in comparison, SmackDown always feels rushed or incomplete. Especially with a champion that shows up every week, it's hard to find time for the mid-card. I think that you're speaking nothing but facts here. In fact, there is always one division of SmackDown that loses out every single episode because of how short the show is. Whether it's the mid-card, whether it's the women, whether it's the tag team division, something always has to get put by the wayside because of the limitations of how long the show is. So I agree with you at this point. And I was somebody that hated the idea of more time on SmackDown because Raw was so poorly paced. But as you said, Raw has gotten much better in terms of pacing, and the 3 hours feel like the right amount of time for Raw. And I think that we can do that for SmackDown as well. Gunther versus Cody at SummerSlam will definitely be a match of the year candidate. I picked this one because I want to comment on the Cody versus X needs to happen this year, or I cannot wait to see Cody versus X. All of the matches that we want to see Cody Rhodes have, like Cody Rhodes versus Gunther is a great example that you throw here, Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton, these are all matches that are better served after Cody Rhodes has his feud with The Rock, because every match and every feud that happens for the WWE Championship between now and until when Cody Rhodes faces off against The Rock is a foregone conclusion that Cody Rhodes is going to win, because Cody Rhodes is gonna defend this title against The Rock. That's what they set up, and that's kind of the problem that was left when The Rock talked about wanting the title and then disappearing for all this time. So I would personally rather have Gunther versus Cody, Cody versus Randy Orton, Cody versus Carmelo Hayes, whatever it might be, all after the stuff with The Rock happens, so that there's actually a sense of drama and danger that Cody Rhodes might actually lose the match, because as it stands, everyone's gonna lose to Cody until the Cody versus Rock feud happens. While I think the criticisms of Jey Uso recently are fair, and I agree that he's at an all-time low in his current babyface run, I'm confident that he'll pick up his momentum soon again when he's working with guys like Gunther and Drew. So I picked this out because I think that this is the narrative that's being spoken in the hardcore wrestling spaces like the internet wrestling community. However, to say that Jey Uso is at an all-time low is just wrong, because he is like the top babyface of Monday Night Raw, and that is how they're treating him. I would say that he just is way more one-dimensional and less exciting and less intriguing than he was when he was part of the Bloodline. So I do think that his work in that manner has actually regressed and gotten less interesting. But I think it's all by design. I think the WWE has an easier time maybe pushing more one-dimensional babyfaces. Maybe that's the case. But this notion that Jey Uso is at the bottom of the barrel, just struggling right now, it's only a consensus amongst the smarks online. I love that Triple H is making King/Queen of the Ring a #1 contendership type situation like the Rumble. And he should have announced it right off the get-go. Day one, we should have known that the winner of King and Queen of the Ring would get a championship opportunity at SummerSlam. He shouldn't have kept it a secret. I know that he said that he did it because he didn't want it to take away from the tournament, because the tournament itself should matter, but I'm sorry that you're just wrong. Try to use that same logic for the Royal Rumble. We just don't want to tell the world that the Royal Rumble winner gets a championship opportunity at WrestleMania because we want the people to believe that just winning the Royal Rumble is exciting enough. No, that's illogical. Of course, we're going to be far more excited and far more invested if we know that there are major stakes at the end of this, as opposed to just a moniker of King and Queen of the Ring. Every single match would have just meant so much more if they told us right off the rip that this was going to have championship implications. So I disagree with you, Triple H. I think that you should have announced this right off the get-go, and that this actually adds so much more importance to the tournament. Having 2 nights for SummerSlam is a great idea, especially after this past year's was disappointing. It's great to see them starting to treat it as a second biggest PLE. I think this is all a money thing. I think that they're going to make so much more money by making SummerSlam a 2-day affair. However, it also has me excited for this year's SummerSlam because I think they need to make this year's SummerSlam so fucking incredibly good that it needs to justify the 2 nights starting next year. I don't think that there's anything that says that SummerSlam warrants 2 nights. I don't think that there's been any evidence in the past 10, 15 years that says SummerSlam needs 2 nights. But I'm very interested in the strategy of this. I'm sure this is going to make the WWE so much more money. I'm sure it's going to make the city that's hosting SummerSlam so much more money. And maybe they are going to treat it, like you said, like the second biggest PLE of the year, something major like WrestleMania, because it hasn't felt anywhere near as important as WrestleMania in the last several years. So I'm interested, but I'm not convinced. And for me to be convinced, I think they need to make this year's SummerSlam the greatest SummerSlam ever. The pay-per-view for this shouldn't be, quote, King and Queen of the Ring, because that's just too much. It should just be like, quote, Royalty of the Ring or Ring Royalty. Mason, I totally understand your sentiment where you're coming from, because I agree. I think King and Queen of the Ring as a premium live event name is a bit too much of a mouthful, but you're overworking yourself. We already have Crown Jewel, and it's in Saudi Arabia. Crown Jewel. It was right there, dude. It was right there. 2 nights of SummerSlam is great to showcase talent, but the Royal Rumble may have been better utilized for 2 nights and have the men's and the women's Rumble headlining. Then you could showcase even more talent. I get it if it's too close to Mania though. And you said it right there at the end. That is probably the reason why you can't do it. It's just so close to WrestleMania. I think if you were to ever do it for the Royal Rumble, it would need to be because the WWE strategy is to make the big 4 PLEs, all of them, a 2-night affair. And I'm talking WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, as well as the Royal Rumble. But it's just too close to WrestleMania in my opinion. I think that SummerSlam and WrestleMania, even that's pretty close to each other, all things considered. But at the very least, those two have always been the 1-2 in terms of biggest wrestling shows. But I get it. Like in terms of structure, it actually makes a shit ton of sense for the Royal Rumble. I agree with you. Io should have been Queen of the Ring. I agree. She could have been the Queen of the Sky. Would have just been perfect. All right, folks, that's the video for today. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoy King and Queen of the Ring, but that's it. I'm done. Get out of here.